All stand tall. If you can reach, you can stand taller. If those below you have their hands extended, please reach out and pull them up and show them the way once they reach your height. This is the times that we are in. Each one teach one. Seek out, reach out. Be more than just a dollar sign. Make more out of your interactions than just a compensation. In all things, be selfless and modest. That will extend others unto you naturally. Now, what we want to touch on today is some codes in terms of biblical terminology. As you peer throughout the Bible, we find many things. As we peer through our religion, we find a lot of similarities. But today we will discuss what we find pairing into the good book, as some of the Christians would say. And mind you, before I begin, that we heed not into pointing fingers and being judgmental towards anybody in their practice. You have to understand the power that's within that book in order to understand why people don't move away from it when you feel, well, this is allegory, or this is symbolisms, or this is just a poem written by such and such, or these psalms were found in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Sure, facts for sure, but keep in mind, you cannot deny what is good, even though it's surrounded by bad or there's bad before or after it. And this is the idea when you're talking about bettering yourself and what hurdles you'll have to go through and over in order to establish character. It's almost wrestling with the devil in order to find yourself, and that would be God, as we have termed it. Now, looking into some biblical codings before we touch that, we'll monitor Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. As we examine those first 5 books of the Bible, what do we see? We see a chronological order, but in reality, if you did a little historical research, as they would say here, Westerners, then you would know clearly that that isn't the chronological order of the Bible. Genesis meaning the beginning, according to their transliteration, but in reality, the happenings that took place therein in terms of the original Bible being combined and put out for reading, it never had those books as 5 books, but as one book. That's correct. And when you move on to the poetical books, which was also 5 books considered one book, and that would be Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Lamentations. And to lament is to grieve, or one who is in grief or is grieving. An amazing poetry therein, and obviously scriptures that have been transliterated from original Aramaic texts, as well as other such tongues. Looking deeper into it, we see that we also had the New Testament, which was originally 29 books, and we had the Old Testament, which was originally 24 books, if I'm not mistaken. So why is it less books? It's less books in the Bible because you had the minor prophets, the major prophets, and then they combined Obadiah, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi, Nahum. We had Joel, Zechariah, Habakkuk, another important minor prophet with a lot of prophecy and a lot of enshrouded information therein to be decoded if you are wise. It's a guiding light. Never misstep or, so to speak, mistake the extent of your own waist. Right before it reaches the anal column, it's in the digestive tract, which has been extracting all of the nutrients therefrom that process. It's only the waste combined and processed perfectly according to plan that, in fact, leads to that stench, which is what we call waste. And be mindful of your waste. Let's not detour too far, but waste is healthy. Like, what's wrong with you? Very healthy. You have to excrete. You have to get it out of you, and you should be having 1, 2, 3, even a day if doable. On the right diet. It's a great flush, and know what to put inside of yourself. We'll actually develop a video on that specifically. Now, moving forward, so you have these books that are conjoined. You have the New Testament, you have the minor prophets, you have the major prophets, you have Ezekiel, you have Isaiah, you have Abraham, you have Jeremiah, you have Moses, you have David, and you have those stories therein. So you also have the historical books, which is First and Second Chronicles, First and Second Kings, the Book of Judges, Nehemiah. Therein you find a lot of more history as well as prophecies, Numbers, Leviticus, Exodus, Deuteronomy. These particular books therein give a lot of sound judgment, laws, and specifics on why people are cursed and what leads you to be cursed. How do you relinquish these curses? And again, it's our story therein. This is why you see people don't meditate away from religion when they're upon, say, Christianity, Judaism, Catholicism, a Jew, to that extent, in a form or practice of this same one book here called the Bible, or for those that want to focus on the Torah, it's still derivative from this one book here, scroll, transliterated 1 billion times, obviously from our text, but it's so lost. But at the same time, there's so much still in there that the grip, it's a spell, literally, a spell of King Gu. Malachi York spoke on this, and Free the Elder, another victim, and we'll have a session on political prisoners and show respect to them. But moving forward, we have a code that I'm going to spit forward to you. We have the 609 BC. I think it's King Hezekiah. No, it was King Nebuchadnezzar. 609 BC, and he ruled from that time until 539 BC. That was 70 years. Thereafter, I believe we had the Medes and the Persians, and they ruled from about 539 BC to 332 BC. Then we had the leopard, that was the symbol from 332 to 168 AD, and the leopard was the symbol of this particular rule, which was under Alexander the Great, which was nothing was great about him. He was a thief. He shot up all of the monuments and disfigured the noses and eyes and facial countenance. And this is where the 21 gun salute comes from. Moving forward, and he dominated many kingdoms in our country, sadly, as well as Timbuktu, and the decimation of all information outside of what wasn't shipped directly to what we know today as the Vatican. Just a complete decimation, ruins upon ruins. Many of us, we have the intel. Looking deeper, now we move into 168 BC into so-called when the Christ occurs. In terms of Jesus's life, his 500 followers, the Sadducees, Pharisees against him, which is reflective of the black man in America, if you want to look at it this way, or anybody who's been persecuted, for that matter, for wanting to do the right thing and uphold justice and fairness to nature in the universe. Moving forward, we see that we have Rome is the last ruler, and sadly, it was a combination of metal and clay. We did have the tall statue prophesied in the book of Daniel showing the top gold. Then you had silver, bronze, and the feet were bronze and clay. And that shows the instability, which is reflective of the times we're in now. It's just more prophecy, but there's depth there. So when you're talking about pulling someone from out of the church, understand you're up against the code. You're up against the timeline. You're up against the authors. You're up against the opiates, which is why religion is all powerful. Don't think that they don't want to hear you. They can't hear you. Some people, ears are wax, eyes wool over it. They won't get it. And you have to allow that to be. You have to take yours and what you've gained and the gains from it and exchange it onto others, those with a receiving spirit. Modesty above all, pride, arrogance, we reject it. Know the role. Those who don't support you, clearly, they are showing you who they are. Please stay keen on the evidence. One love to everybody. I love you all.